It should be. Oh, this is what makes it real. Ooh, do you feel like, yeah, like the light really changed on
Did you
us
see
there?
that?
It makes it really official.
Just waiting for it to.
So, oh, if you're live, then I won't talk about your
Okay,
town
no.
hall shit.
No,
Here we go.
we're live.
All right. Well, I'll let
So-
you take it away.
Welcome to Policy and Pilsner. We have myself, Councilman Dave DeMott. I have Representative Tracy Kraft-Tharp joining us this week, and candidate for HD29, Vanessa DeMott. So we always start these shows. First of all, welcome everybody. Second of all, we always start by figuring out what everybody is drinking. And so since you're the guest, Tracy, what do you got in your pint?
So I just have a glass of white wine.
Just a glass of white wine. Is that like not a good
Glass
thing?
of Sauvignon Blanc. It's a wine that we discovered in California when we went to California. So we came back here and bought a case of it. Yeah.
And the
So
rest is history.
just history.
What are you drinking, Vanessa?
Well, first, I really like that Tracy is rocking the stemless stemware.
Oh, yes.
So it looks like we've got matching glasses. Your glass is way more full than mine is right now. I am going with a red tonight, but it's a red, and I thought this was an appropriate title. It's lefty red wine. So
Oh,
it's amazing. I actually got this as a birthday gift from our friend Maria Weiss a couple months ago. So it's taken me about that long to get through it. So Dave, what is in your pint?
I am drinking rum and a diet ice drink because I'm trying my best to behave on my diet. It hasn't been going great, but
See, that is the self-discipline you want in your community leaders, that he can stay still to the diet while in quarantine.
not on the weekend.
rum and diet ice. Really?
I got to water the
It's
rum down
delicious.
somehow. I can't just drink rum. I'm not a pirate.
I'm not a pirate. So I discovered a new drink in this quarantine world on Facebook.
Ooh, hold on.
Okay, write this down, Vanessa.
Okay.
You could do it next
Ready.
week.
Okay.
Limoncello and the juice from Little Cuties.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let's just take a minute and talk about that and limoncello and all of its amazement anyways.
Right.
I
So
like
the
limoncello.
first time we did it, we only juiced 2 cuties. Not enough.
Not
And then the
enough.
last time we juiced like 8 cuties. Too many. So you have to go somewhere in between there.
This is actually a real scientific process.
It is. And you have to try it.
test, repeat.
Try it many times until you get it right.
So limoncello and cuties, for our fans out there, I need somebody, if they have all of those ingredients, if they could just try it right now, really
And let
put
us know.
theory to test.
My boss was supposed to bring me. I keep giving him a hard time. So my company that owns us, so I work for Postnet, but the company who owns us is MBE Global, and they're in Milan, Italy. And so I went out there last year, and we drank a fair amount of limoncello, a couple dinners, after we got stuck in an elevator.
Limoncello's not on the diet.
No, but I got stuck in an elevator.
Is
with,
anything in Italy on the diet?
yeah, I actually, up until the day I got stuck in an elevator, I was strict on the diet. And after being stuck in an elevator in a foreign country where there was a recording in Italian when we were trying to get out, I decided I was gonna do what I wanted, and I had some limoncello and pizza. So, but my boss was out there a couple months ago before all this madness really hit. Well, I mean, it hit there first, and they couldn't travel, and then but he was supposed to bring me a bottle back, and he didn't. So I've been giving him a hard
No
time
bottle.
about it. No.
So he could
knows
bring
me.
a bottle back for all of us.
Yeah, I'll tell him.
I
mean, why
think
not?
so. I as we have a fun game tonight, maybe the limoncello really needs to be like, we get through a few of these and then we get like a grand champion of trivia, and then that is the prize online. We can have like a trivia Olympics at the end of quarantine with all of our guests.
Well,
My husband went to the liquor store to buy another bottle of limoncello, right? And the liquor store, he went to 2 of them, they were out. And the woman said, we used to have 4 bottles that we had not sold forever. And now during these quarantines, they
You're-
sold them out.
You're a
So it's,
trendsetter.
yeah, it's the quarantine drink.
That's good stuff.
Well, so
Last
I-
week when I watched, I was very confused about the two of you. And I was very confused about where you are. So one of you go into the screen of the other one so we can see how you are next to each other.
Yeah, we're that close.
That's a little creepy when you do that.
There's method to our madness. The reason why is because of the trivia. And I hold trivia very close to my heart, and I can't share a screen with him because I don't want him to foresee any of the slides. So it's legit. It is completely legit, man. You want me on your corporate team. I am that kind of person. So he doesn't think so, but
I don't win. She let Alberto clown me in my own garage on my own show.
And he did. He did clown.
did.
he did great.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was a little disappointed he missed the quote from what he said was his favorite movie.
That's pretty sad. I'll be
Like-
honest.
like
If it's
I
your
think it's
favorite
easy,
movie, like
But
that was all based off of answers given by
it's
Alberto.
good stuff.
So
Oh,
I just want you to
Alberto.
say, Dave, I like you better than Alberto likes you. So I'll let you win.
You know, that's
Alberto doesn't like you. I like you. So
well, what does that say? I'm here married to the man, and I'm definitely not doing it in his favor.
No,
we'll take care of it, Dave. You could be a winner.
We like to have a lot
I
of
like
fun.
to win every once in a while. But like I said last week, I've lost Alberto more times than I've won. So
But the important thing is you won against our 12-year-old son at House Divided Monopoly.
that's true.
And that right there, my friends, that's all you need.
Oh,
He got cocky. He got cocky. Don't get cocky. Well, I want to give a couple quick updates of what we did in city council this week, since that's kind of the main thing. So a couple things that I'd point out that I thought were substantial is one, we had a emergency ordinance where we basically took some bonds and refunded, and were able to allow our finance team to refinance those with the historic low rates we have. Kind of silver lining of the bad situation we're in, but that saves the taxpayers about $3.4 million is what they're estimating, which is a good thing. I mean, I specifically am always asking for them to find creative ways to pay for what we need to pay for, so we can, hopefully keep rates lower. So I thought that was really good. The other thing that I think we spent a good amount of time on, I mean, there were other things, but there was a lot of cities are doing letters to the governor about rent control and foregoing mortgage payments and stuff, which initially the letter had like kind of recommendation, and then there was a second paragraph that was kind of saying that government should force that, and there were at least some of us, myself included, who didn't like the language of force because we didn't really think government had a right to do that. But I think we all agree that there's people hurting out there, and we understand the intent of it. So at the end of the day, the council was able to come up with something that recommended it and covered all the bases that we wanted to cover, including recommending that the state and federal government look at other ways to help subsidize people who are in need. So I thought it was good because it did take about a half an hour or so of the meeting, but we were able to work through our differences and come up with something, a letter, to both the state and federal government, with what we would recommend. And obviously we're one small city in a great large nation that's all suffering, but I think it's noteworthy that that happened.
Can I ask, like, as you guys are doing this, normally when you're sitting at the dais down at City Hall, your council sessions are streamed, and so I listen sometimes on Facebook. Are you guys noticing any increase in citizen interest as this goes on, as you guys are making day-to-day decisions that affect their lives? Does that increase at all?
Oh, I think so, because everybody's captive at home and looking for something to do. And so like all of us are posting it on our Facebook when we're doing these live meetings. Not that they're not always live, but it's a little different because now we're all remote too, which has I think it's good that it gives people a little bit more engagement. I think I don't know, Tracy, how much like these different Zoom calls and stuff you're doing, but like to date, the council, at least in Westminster, we're not doing video. And I think that's hard. I think it's hard for your attention span when you're not looking at people you're in a meeting with. But I also think it's hard because you know how it is. You've been in politics a long time. I like to see my colleagues and you can read a lot if you work with people every Monday night and
Yeah.
and more. So trying to get a temperature of your colleagues, I think, is hard when you're in a remote meeting. I think it's great that we're able to do the business of the people that we need to do, but there's some learning that's still happening, I think. So it's been interesting, but I'm glad to see that people are paying attention. But I mean, they have a lot of questions. There's a lot of concerns going on. People are curious. We just did our Westy Rise grant program. It was a $1.5 million we did, and that filled up quick. They took 400 applications and to close it because they think that we're probably at our limit of what we had available. So they'll start going through those applications, but they closed that last evening, I think, because it just had opened. It was only open a couple days,
Right.
which I'm glad we were able to have resources to do that. And I think we got something from the mayor today that said something like between all the municipalities, I think that there was about $15 million across the metro area. So it's a bad situation, but I'm glad that all the municipalities are able to step up, because at the end of the day, we need business to survive in the state of Colorado, both for us to have those businesses at our disposal, but also because they pay for all our services. So with that though, like I would like, Tracy, if you want to share kind of legislative updates. And obviously there's been, this has changed the way the legislator is working, but I'd be curious to hear from your perspective, like how things have been going and where you guys are at and anything significant you'd want to share.
Absolutely. So, the legislature went into recess on March 14th through a resolution that put us into recess actually until March 30th, not knowing that, what was happening, what would be happening by March 30th. Part of what happens for us is we just don't walk down the hall by ourselves. We come with a lot of people, a lot of baggage. So, there's all the staff, the partisan staff, the lobbyists, and then there's citizens who, when we are there, come down to the Capitol. And so the feeling was it just was not safe to be able to stay in session. So we went into recess. March 30th, we decided, looked at the situation, decided that it was not, due to public safety, it was not a good time to be able to come back. So we basically are adjourning each day. We tentatively are looking at going back May 18th or 19th. But that doesn't mean that we are just sitting not doing anything until May 18th or 19th. So one of the big things that is happening is that this has had a real effect around the state budget. So we had a budget forecast, a revenue forecast in March that showed that it was going to be a pretty tough budget. We were looking at a couple $100 million in deficit at that time, but a lot has happened since March. We need to get a solid sense of what is happening. So we're going to have a new revenue forecast on May 12th. And then the Joint Budget Committee will look at putting together next year's budget. That we are looking at that being introduced in the legislature on March 18th when we go back. So we will go back and work on three things specifically. One is the state budget, which we would like to have passed and signed by the governor by June 1st. The School Finance Act, which also passed and signed by the governor by June 1st. And then there's a lot of bills out there that are sunset bills that we need to take care of. So that's in a very brief what's happening.
That's not brief at all. That's that's a lot.
So like I said, if I could, we're not doing anything. I am catching up on my soaps. I will admit that. But in between that, we are pretty busy. And, the question is, so what are we doing? I spend from 9 o'clock in the morning till probably 8, 9 o'clock at night on Zoom meetings. We're meeting with the different departments, finding out what's happening. We're meeting with different coalitions in the community. So we're doing a lot of meetings. I'm helping individual constituents with problems that they're happening right now. Questions around businesses. Are they essential? Are they non-essential? What can we do about that? Like Dave, you and I were working on looking at the chiropractor issue. And then the other piece that we are doing is we're reaching out to people in need in the community. My office is doing phone calls, and Vanessa, you were part of our volunteer team. I want to say thank you very much. So we are calling seniors to check in, see how they're doing, and see if there's something that they need, grocery, pharmacy, errands. And I have a team of volunteers that are making calls. I have a team of volunteers that are doing deliveries. If anyone wants to help, call my office, call me at home. We can give you that information. So we started out calling 80 and above, and now we're working on age 75 to 80. So a lot of legislative offices are calling people 65 and older. Now I found that a little offensive because I felt like that was pretty young. So we're not doing 65 and older. But Vanessa, I want to say thank you very much. We really appreciate you helping out in our calling team.
Well, it speaks to that bigger issue and why we all get involved at that very basic level, because we want to help people in our community. We see people that are hurting and struggling for whatever reason, and that's why we jumped in. And I know, as your office as well as the Westminster Chamber was reaching out to businesses. The response I got, although I personally didn't have a citizen that needed any help, sorry if you guys can all hear the dogs. What the response that we got was, oh my gosh, thank you so much for just thinking about us. Thank you for thinking
Right.
about me. And then we left it at, if you're willing to, if you know of a neighbor that is in need of help that we haven't reached out to, please take this number and call us back. This is my cell phone. Please call me. So it keeps that communication going. And when we all feel alone, that meant a lot, I think, to a lot of people. So thank you for just organizing it and getting your staff to jump on that. So,
of course. And it's a great way for the community to get involved. People are sitting at home and they don't know what to do. And you could sit at home and make phone calls to people while you're sitting on the couch, while you're catching up with your soaps, while it keeps you engaged in the community. We've called a couple thousand people. We had the same experience, Vanessa, that not a lot of people are saying, yes, we need help. But they're so appreciative we've called. They're so appreciative someone's checking in with them. And if this goes on for a while, they may need help.
Yeah,
for sure.
well, I saw back, I'm watching the thread of people watching here. So hello to everybody that's watching.
Yeah.
I know that Nancy asked about the
Dave Carpenter and Cheryl Johnson. Oh my God, I haven't seen you in such a long time. Hi. And Parker. Is Parker bringing us dinner?
Oh, dinner to go with limoncello.
Yeah, Parker.
It is coming together. The whole
Parker
night's
might
coming
have
together.
Parker might be the source. He might have limoncello over there. I did see that there was a question from former Mayor McNally about the chiropractors, and I do know from my chiropractor, I know that there was some movement. At least he had emailed all his, and that's how I actually found out about it. I was able to get into my chiropractor the day before they stopped. He was basically told he needed to stop working. So I had started trying to work on it, and I talked to Tracy, you about it, and I talked to our council about it, and really anybody who would listen, because I think a lot of people need that service. So I appreciate anybody who worked on that. But I do know that there was some change as far as he's allowed to do certain things. It's a lot more stringent. There's a lot of guidelines about how he has to have people wait in the cars until their appointment. He has some pretty strict guidelines around how he can get you in and what you can go in for. So I know that there has been some change, but I know that's kind of one of those topics that I think people probably like it a little more loose than it is. But I do know that there has been some movement because my chiropractor shared that with his clients.
Right. So originally, I think it was interpreted by many that your chiropractor could not be open. And I started getting some emails from people on that. There was a Facebook thread. Oh, it was Vicky Pine's Facebook thread, and you and I were both on there. And so I started looking at the language that the Department of Regulatory Agencies sent out. It was pretty strict. I contacted the governor's office and the Department of Regulatory Agencies, and they were able to reissue that language. And so basically, all non-essential services cannot happen. and even with chiropractors. But if there is a service that is essential for your health, I mean, it has to be more than you're going in, you know, for your regular adjustment, that your chiropractor can choose to be open. And it's like with any business, they have to follow safety precautions. But anyone that's interested in that, there's guidance on the Department of Regulatory Agency's page, and they should call the chiropractor. The chiropractor would know what they can do. We, my husband and I, are anxiously awaiting the day that our chiropractor opens up.
Yeah, mine's you know, it's funny actually. I tell him that he made me a believer because I don't like I don't like people to touch me. B, was like, I don't believe in that. That's not gonna do anything for you. And I had probably 2.5 years ago, I hurt my back really bad and I couldn't even stand up straight. And I had to go, I went and saw him like 3 times a week because it was like that for like 3 weeks. And I finally was like, at that point, I was in so much pain, like I'll try anything. So I knew he was part of my Rotary group, BMC Chiropractic here in the city. And so I knew like Bob Briggs went to him, and I think Alberto now maybe uses him. I don't know, but I know a handful of people who went to Rotary that use him. So
It's a household name.
so I went a couple of times, and the first time I felt a little better, and I was at least standing up straight within 2 weeks. And I went back for a while.
Wow.
But every once in a while, if I feel like my back is getting, if it feels like it's going to go that direction, I'll get in there right away to avoid it. But I know a lot of people really depend on that. I know people that if they don't go all the time, they end up like that. They end up crooked. So
well, and I think again, you both have spoke to this in your positions of making policy, that you learn a lot from a place like this. We say it over and over again, it's unprecedented, but yeah, as chiropractors, there's people who choose that form of help as opposed to taking pain medications or going other routes. So it just needed some clarification, and it's great to have, you know, advocates that push for that. So
do you see, Tracy, there's a question from Counselor Lindsay Smith.
I saw
Do you
that.
want to address that?
So what Counselor Smith is asking is if the stay-at-home order will go past April. She's hearing some rumblings. You know what? I do not know if it will go past April. I know that the governor had a press conference today, and he started talking about what is the reopening plan. And there is 3 phases that they see in reopening, whether that's through the stay-at-home, opening up businesses, you know, all of the things that opening up our chiropractors, opening up our hairdresser and nail people, for heaven's sakes. So the phase that we are in right now is the urgent phase, in which we need to suppress the virus growth. I mean, we need to get this stabilized. The second phase is the stabilization phase, in which we increase the testing, contact tracing, quarantine, and isolating. And then the third phase will be recovery. Counselor Smith asked if we were going to have to stay at home until we have a vaccine. Everything I've seen on the news is that we probably will not have a vaccine until a year from September. So I don't think we're going to have to stay at home until then. But what I'm hearing, and everyone's probably watching the same interviews that I am, is that it will be a while before we'll have a Rockies game or a concert or an event with 1,000 different people. So what we will be doing is opening up in a way that will be safe to people, quarantine, contact tracing, isolation. But we've got to get businesses back. We've got to get people's lives back.
Well, and I think, so you bring up a topic that I think is interesting right now that's got me kind of fired up. So this is probably the hardest time for me right now since I've been involved in government, because I very much am freedom versus force, and I don't like being told in our civil liberties. And that's a big discussion for everybody right now. I mean, not just in politics, but in general, because, you know, we are definitely restricting people's freedoms to some extent. And, you know, that I don't like. Some of this other stuff, like with the contract tracing and stuff, I get it, and I understand we want to keep people safe, but I'm uncomfortable, you know, with, like, if you ask me, hey, we want to track you, I'd be like, stick it, not going to happen. But I understand some people maybe are comfortable with it, but I mean, it's an interesting topic that's going on right now. And you see, I mean, obviously there's a lot of conspiracy, normal, but this is like ramp that up on steroids. But, you know, so it's, I mean, it's interesting, all the different things that you hear talked about in the different states and from the president on down, you know, and I don't think anybody has the solution yet, to your point, like, because we don't know how long it's going to take. We have a lot of different things we're hearing about what's effective treatment. I would say from what I've seen though, and I'm sure you see the same numbers that we see in the city, we get the, you know, the daily reports, and it does look like we've luckily, at least so far, leveled off. It looks like it's been better as far as the Colorado numbers. But I think, you know, to your point of not going straight back into it, it's about keeping it that way and not you know, going back up. And I know I've heard a lot about, obviously, as people grow immunity to it, we don't expect, from the science I've heard, they don't expect it to, even if it flared up again, it wouldn't be totally the same, because people have been exposed to it. So society, to some level, like any virus, we start gaining immunity. But I don't know if you want to speak on any of those topics, but I mean, that's the stuff that like I wrestle with myself, just even in our meetings, like especially the civil liberty pieces of it.
So I'm not a doctor. I don't make medical decisions. I rely on those people who are experts in science and who do people who do have expertise in this. But I listen pretty carefully to everything that they're saying, because my job is to make policy decisions. So are we going to have a second surge, a third surge? You know, we don't know. Do we have immunity once you've had it? We don't know. So policy decisions have to be made based upon what the scientists and the health professionals say. But my question for you, Dave, that I came into this with is, you are we the people, hold up your arm, and you are a Liberty guy. And so where are you at with contact tracing? I mean, they talk about in South Korea that, you know, if your temperature is high, I mean, you go in isolation. And they have a little mechanism on their phones that track who people have had contact with. So as a Liberty guy, where are you at with that?
I'm super against it. Like, I'm not, anytime you say, hey, we want to track you or trace you or tell you like how you're going to manage this, even if you're sick, like I understand saying I'm going to quarantine at home. And like, I think that and this is something that I've consistently said throughout this, is I do think a free society is a dangerous one. I think that people to some extent need to be able to make those choices. And I think that people who are especially in the at-risk categories, that you need to be careful. And those of us who aren't in the at-risk categories need to realize the personal responsibility we have to not risk those other people. So I don't take it lightly at all. I guess that my line is always like when I'm being told I need to do something that otherwise would seem, you know, we would normally out of these circumstances, I couldn't imagine a time where we would suggest that as a government. So to me, that same feeling doesn't go away, even with the weight of these circumstances. And I think that they're heavy, real circumstances. Does that mean that, you know, some people couldn't say that they voluntarily would do that? I get that. I know that even I saw some stuff that the governor made mention about doing tracing with the cell phones, which I know a lot of other countries do that, but other countries are different than ours. And like, it's interesting, like say, take my company. We've been doing a lot of learning from our colleagues in Milan, but Milan's government is much different than our government. And I've knew this before the circumstance. Like take, for example, one of my direct reports in Milan is a sports shooter. And so I took him shooting when he came out here. And shooting out there versus out here is very different. Like he can only buy like, you know, a small box of ammo at a time. So when I took him shooting, I was like, well, how much do you want me to buy? And he just like didn't know what I was talking about. So, I mean, their liberties versus ours, I mean, they're, you know, fairly free society, but it's much different than ours. So it's hard to fully take their advice for what we can do with our employees out here versus what they do out there, because their government has a different say than ours.
True. So have you been exposed? Have you been around somebody who has had a positive COVID test?
I at least know people who have had it, but I don't know when they got it versus the last time I saw them.
because I think I get the argument around people should have the freedom to be able to decide what they want. The difficulty is that Dave, your freedom is about you exposing me, and that's where I think a lot of the difference is. I was exposed to a colleague. I was sitting right next to a colleague, talking closer than we are right now. Here, reach up to the camera, Dave. Right, closer than we are right now. And she was diagnosed positive. And for 14 days, I will tell you, I had the hypochondriac virus, where every day I would get up and I would have a sore throat and a headache. And I was so convinced it was coming. Scary, scary. Because if you could just have the mild one, that's a different story. But when you hear the stories about people going into the hospital and not coming back out,
I think you have a valid point, and I guess that's the hard balance, right? Because that, that freedom is, the saying ends at my fist at the end of your nose or whatever. So I get it and I understand, but I definitely have my limit to it. Even though I understand what you're saying, we probably wouldn't come down to an agreement on it, I would assume. But but I do understand people who are in that other camp. So
maybe not, but I don't know where I'm at with it. But policy decisions are hard in these things.
Oh yeah, especially when we're talking about other people. Like, it's one thing to make a policy when it's my safety and I'm the one making the risk versus making the risk for somebody else.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
So I totally agree with you on that and get it. It's just, and I don't know the right answer for it. It's difficult. It's a difficult time. It's a difficult situation. And I think under different circumstances, you probably see people up in arms, frankly. But we're in the situation we're in. We all know, and it's not just America, it's the whole world. And there's good questions about how risky is it. And I think the problem is we just don't know, because people manifest it so different. And I mean, to your point of knowing somebody who's had it, I know a friend who had it that they were at home for a couple days and it was like a really bad cold or strep throat. I know a friend who had it that was in the hospital on induced and on the breathing machine and everything. Both of them are better now, and one of them still a little bit on the road to recovery, but they're home. So I mean, it's hard because I, like everybody else, have family members who are in risk categories. So and
I don't want to be the person that goes out and gets you sick.
Yeah.
I don't want to be the person that, goes to the King Supers and gets everybody there sick.
And I guess I can understand that. And I think where we all fall in that line of freedom is if you have any worry that you might be in that risk category, then you should absolutely stay home. I think where we're getting to now in that May 1st and whatever this deadline looks like is who at that time knows that they can be out, they can keep themselves safe, but we still have a population that is concerned. But it sounds like that whole argument keeps coming at what point have we reached to where we have to bring our economy back? And I also look at mental health, and I know you're a huge advocate for mental health. And I know, as when I'm online for school right now. So as I saw all of my students, that first time we all got back into class together, it was great. We were having a great time. We were talking. We don't look the same a couple weeks later. It's definitely taking its toll on people. So a lot of things to be considered. We lose a lot of lives every day to suicide and to mental illness. So, where do we put the rights of one over the rights of another? And a lot of factors to consider. So as you guys have said, as policy you're making, and I learn a lot from watching policymakers like you have to be able to remove the emotion, but still know who it's affecting.
Well, and I think, and not to get too much on the president, because that could go down all sorts of roads, but I'd hate to be him right now, because I imagine the weight, and I say that about any president versus the ones I support or the ones that I haven't. I've always supported them at some level being our leaders. And I think that, that's an important thing that this country needs to get better at. And that's across the board, both sides. But the other thing is, he has some really good points, and he's not the only one who said it, is about, it can't be worse. The cure can't be worse than the disease. And, at some level, the amount of damage that we could do to our economy versus not. So I'm not hearing you say that that's the solution. That's the hard thing.
Go, Dave.
The hard thing is what's the balance? And I don't think, and at some level, we're all kind of like, this is new ground, and we're doing the best we can with the data in front of us, to your point, and to the presidents, with the experts in our ears.
But I would like to say, I think that the governor has done an exceptional job, that the governor has been very moderate and in his decision making. And as a matter of fact, I had a call last week from somebody who lives in the district, who was complaining to me about, she's a libertarian, complaining to me about all her liberty rights being taken care of and how unhappy she was. She called me today and said she saw the governor on his press conference today talking about the reopening plan, and was so impressed with the thoughtfulness, the reasonableness, the pragmatic approach that he is taking in looking at the situation, balancing public health, balancing the business interests. So, yeah.
Well, I think, to your point and to my point about kind of working with each other, at some level, that's why we have a balance of power in this country, because that's why we have a representative government that works well. We all kind of come to the table with a different mindset. And even to my point of why I like being face to face with my colleagues, we learn from each other. We think of things that we otherwise wouldn't think of. And sometimes at the end of the day, hopefully we come up with a solution that's better than we had by ourselves, that thinks of more of our constituents that may think of things differently than we do. And, so I think across the country, we've seen a lot of that in general from leadership, and you see people patting each other on the back that normally probably wouldn't do so. And so hopefully that continues. But I think this discussion is an important part of it, because it gets to what different people are concerned about. And I haven't, even with like the liberty stuff, even people who don't, think differently than I do, I haven't heard anybody say like none of my concerns are invalid, which I think is important. Like, we're all trying to hear each other out and think through, what does this look like? And, unfortunately, we don't know yet. And I think that's why so many people are stressed out. And to the mental health part, why I think they're so heavy for us to get it right, because this is stressful for people who normally don't struggle with mental health. The lines of people who are needing that support are big right now.
So true. So Brian had posted that it's great to see two people from both sides of the aisle having a meaningful dialogue. So we're not doing a good job here. We need to start arguing.
We need to fight.
Yes.
We're blowing everybody's perceptions of politics out of the water.
Right. I think we could do
we have plenty of arguments.
We do. We have good policy arguments. Yes. On the mental health piece, can I throw a plug in here?
Yeah.
This Saturday is my town meeting that I do with Representative Brianna Titone, Senator Rachel Zenzinger. It's a Zoom meeting, 10:30 Saturday morning, and it's on body, mind, and spirit of COVID. So we'll have the executive director from public health, the executive director from mental health, and then also somebody that will talk about the spirituality aspect. So that's a good place. We need to start to explore. We spend so much time talking about how many people and data and what does this look like and speculating on what the future is. But I think that both of you have brought up the mental health aspect. We really need to be doing more exploration about how this is affecting us.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Good point.
And
I like to keep it lively personally. I do my best in our house to keep things humorous and laughing. And I know that's actually my really shameless plug into this trivia that I've created for you both, because I think everybody needs a laugh.
Well, we do.
We'll
get into that.
We can.
Before
Like,
two things before we get into the trivia.
Oh, I went off script. Oh my
God. At
Okay.
Tracy's town halls, I'm regularly the Republican in the back of the room doing this, causing trouble, just so everybody knows. Especially when we talked about minimum wage a couple of years ago. And John was your person on my side. We had a lot of fun with that. But
Yes, definitely.
other thing, before we get into the trivia, I would like Vanessa an opportunity to give a campaign update, because
Yes, that's probably
I have to.
because you have to. Well, just like any good, as Tracy would at her town halls and Dave does at his policy in Pilsner, I appreciate any candidate in the room being able to share their status. So first and foremost, we're talking about mental health. Hi, Vern.
Well, hello there.
Nice to see you. What's in your pint? What did you bring?
I am sharing.
Oh, see, sharing is caring.
Yes, I'm a sharer,
See, you came just in time, so you could hear some campaign updates. I wanted to share first and foremost, it's April, and I was reading an article about child abuse reporting, and because it's gone down, because our kids aren't in those places that they're with their teachers, they're with their coaches, they're with their religious leaders, that reporting has gone down. Child abuse is still happening, and it is still so much on my heart, and it is in our community. It's April, Child Abuse Prevention Month. There are so many organizations that do a great job for this. Ralston House is always at the top of my list. So ralstonhouse.net can make a donation to help them. CASA is another great one in our community. So that is always going to be at the top of my list, and we are here in April. Beyond that, DemontForColorado.com. You can follow my campaign, those issues that are important to me. And these are evolving issues as we kind of go through these unprecedented times. That doesn't change mental health. It doesn't change school safety and education. It doesn't change the transportation we need in our state. And it doesn't change how we look at growth and how we manage and how we handle our population, because that more than ever is meaningful when we look at unemployment and things that affect everybody here. So those issues, DemontForColorado.com. Donations are accepted there as well, because that's an important part of any campaign. And, we look forward to November, because as we've talked about today, citizen engagement right now, it is so great to see that people care about what's going on in their community and with their neighbors. So that's why we get involved. That's why I'm here. And that's Demont for Colorado. Thanks.
Awesome.
Thanks, Dave.
I have to read this. Brian Head he's wanting to give you guys a hard time.
I
Brian
know.
says, HD29 trivia. Vern used to yell at what teenager for speeding through the neighborhood? I'm going to guess Brian Head for 500.
Which I want to make sure it's well qualified and defended for doing so. At 62 miles an hour and at 31,
I've been in a car with Brian before, so he like actually a couple times. Then the next couple times I'm like, you know what, I'll drive.
Did you know that Brian grew up down the street from us?
I did.
Ah, okay.
Oh, so I think there's a trivia in Brian's future is what I'm hearing.
Right. Yes. That will be a future trivia question. Oh, your phone
All
is
right.
ringing.
Well,
Goodbye.
I'm excited. I'm going to do my
Back to
best
business.
to handle technology. I want to share. I want to get our trivia started. No, Vern,
Do I
he
get
can help
oh.
you.
No, he's working. Do I get to do my plug before we jump in the trivia?
Please.
Okay. So most people hopefully know that I'm termed out this year. It's State Representative, in-house District 29, Arvada,
I'm
Westminster.
running.
Yeah. Is that why you're running?
Yeah.
So I'm termed out this year, and I'm running for Jeffco County Commissioner District 1, and was recently nominated as the Democratic nominee for that position. And that's tracyforjeffco.com. And I also will take contributions. Thank you very much, Vanessa. But more important, on Facebook, on Tracy for Jeffco, I really have tried to put a lot of the updates around what is happening on that page, so people can really see that as a central clearinghouse page around what's happening, both in the state level, but also on the county level. And I think on this Friday, our county commissioners are going to have a press conference, or they're going to be speaking about what's the opening up plans in Jeffco. So we need to talk about on the state level. We need to be looking at what's the opening plans on our county level. And then I know Westminster is also looking at that. So thank you very much for the opening, Vanessa.
Absolutely. Well, that goes to show that's how all of these pieces of our government work together, that it can't just be the state deciding or Westminster making decisions, because Jefferson County, Adams, and the state all have to have that communication together. So,
right.
With that said, Colorado has such a great history of all great
I'm gonna look
Wonderful
like
things.
a bad native when I lose to Tracy,
All right.
who I don't believe is a native.
I'm going to do my best to share my screen and hopefully I get it right the first time. Okay. Oh,
I lost. They had a
slideshow.
Colorado trivia at work, and I lost to a Californian. That's right. It happened.
Oh, okay. Here we go. So you guys are now seeing Policy and Pilsner Trivia Edition. Doo-doo-doo. I don't have any sound effects, so I'm so sorry, but this will be fun. So here we go. We're going to start with a warm-up question. Just make sure everybody's mic is working, your brains are going, you haven't had too much to drink. So what is Colorado's state wildflower? And you can play home, you can play online or play at home too. Type it in.
She said combine.
Yep.
Funny
you said
story.
combine.
I did. When they had this question up at work, they had a picture of the combine. I'm like, well, that kind of gives it away, doesn't it?
if you know your flowers. So my screen's kind of covering it, but I'll try to read what I wrote. The flower was discovered this is by statesymbolsusa.org. My communications teachers would be ever so happy if they saw me citing my material in here. So in 1820, it was discovered by Edwin James. He found the flower to be with a lovely aroma, attracting hummingbirds and bees and butterflies. So
everybody at home got it right who guessed, just
see,
FYI.
1820, we've had it's got a great history. All right.
Okay,
Here
well,
we
that
go.
was fun. That was fun. Yeah.
Okay, question 1 of 6. When did Colorado become a state, and what is the state slogan?
Well, I know it's 1876, which she already said. I don't know what the state slogan is.
But you don't have a more specific date than 1876?
I don't know. Somebody needs to be posting this on Facebook, for God's sake.
I know. Where's all our friends? Well, it's
Brian, Nancy. Yeah, Maria.
Oh, well,
she said 1776, but it's
1876.
All right, we're gonna give the answer here. Oh, does that still cover it on your screen? All right, so August 1st, 1876. That's why we're the Centennial State. Oh,
yeah,
beautiful. See, we're learning.
I knew that,
here.
but what's
learning.
it's because it's a centennial.
Centennial because it's 100 years after 1776.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
See, everything's
fun.
going. This is exciting.
This is exciting.
All right. Oh, see, 2 of 6. What step, meaning like what number of step, is the state capitol with the inscription,
I
the
know.
Mile High Step?
It's the 13th step, Vanessa.
The third. Oh. Okay.
Right?
Any answers on that side? You don't know? Okay.
I know where it is.
You know where it is. All right, Dave, you have to move that out of the way again. So according to 5280 magazine, now this is really unique history here because there are 3 different markers on the west facing steps. So while that one is inscribed on the 15th step,
Oh,
so Dave is actually wrong.
Dave.
Because that is inscribed on the 15th step, but the actual Mile High marker is now on the 13th step, which was, this is my notes, just so everybody can see. That was on, in 2003, Governor Bill Owens, after I think a few engineers came and reevaluated the elevation. So there were brass markers, they kept getting stolen. So that's why they inscribed this in the Colorado white granite. And then they put a new marker on the third, or on the,
You lost
on
me
the
at
13th.
you're wrong. I stopped. After that, I stopped listening.
Well, so, okay, let's let Dave redeem himself. Is there anything else monumental that might have happened on that step there at the Capitol, Dave?
That's where we got our wedding picture because we got married.
Oh.
Oh,
Okay.
so good, folks.
Gosh.
November 10th, 2006. Oh, look at that. 1 mile above sea
We
level.
got married at the park by my boss who did the ceremony. With my sister was there and my friend James and a group of homeless people who decided that was what they were going to spend their day doing, which I thought was cool because they hung out and they clapped and
it was lovely.
Oh, how sweet.
So I
very
think he
inclusive.
gets a little bit of extra credit for that because he knew that one. All right, don't worry, we've got more.
Oh, good.
All right. Oh, I think this has got
Good, she
Tracy all
said.
over it. How many House districts or representatives are there currently in Colorado?
I know.
How many?
65.
Oh, you are so good. And for extra credit, can you name all of them? And you gotta.
Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I had, just in case you could, I was going to be ready to check him off.
I could do. And how many are Democrat and how many are Republican, Dave?
Oh,
Too many and too little.
is it 40 and 25?
41.
41. Okay. that's close.
We'll see in November.
Yeah, we'll
Right.
see it.
We'll recalculate in November. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
Can we decide elections by trivia?
I don't think so.
'Cause-
Mm-hmm.
All right. Question 4 of 6. Who is the state's largest employer?
The state? No.
Is her screen frozen or is she thinking?
No, she's
She's
thinking.
thinking.
I do know the answer to this. I just can't think of who it is. Is it the school districts?
Oh, you're really close. I better change it because she might be Googling right now.
Colorado University?
Oh, there you go. It is. CU with
Okay.
13,000 employees.
Is this part of your Alberto trivia?
No, that I just was trying to find some unique facts about Colorado that
Well,
I figured would be a fair game.
Brian
for
said
everybody.
Lockheed Martin. I just want Brian to know he was also wrong.
Ooh,
So.
and Maria Weiss, yes, it is. My inspiration comes from Marietta. No, see. All right, we'll move on because I've got more. All right.
Oh,
Tell us
good.
the name and summary.
It's not
of
ending.
House Bill 20-1284.
Is that your house bill?
Is that my house bill?
Well, if you can tell me the name and summary of it.
Okay, somebody post it, please.
I will. I'll start
You
giving
should have
a hint.
brought. You should have brought a staffer
Yeah.
with you to this.
Do you need to phone a friend?
Need to phone a friend.
I will tell you that this is my daughter's favorite one right now, and then I'll have you kind of give us a little bit of background about it. So
Is it my bill?
it is of course it's your bill. So this is.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yes.
So this is my daughter's favorite bill. She always helps me with these trivia PowerPoints. And when we were looking through just your page and trying to find your bills that you were working on, we saw this, and this means so much to us because we have had to use transport for a mental health crisis. And not only is it expensive, it's just not always the most appropriate thing. So, but as I can also see, this is a bill currently in the works. So maybe if you want, you can give us a little bit of background, like where is the bill at in the process and the financial or fiscal impact?
Great. So a couple years ago, there was a task force in Colorado looking at mental health holds. And one of the issues that came up was how do people get transported? In the rural area, sheriffs were placing people with mental health issues in the jail because they had to bring other sheriffs on staff to be able to then do a safe transport, sometimes 8 hours away. And they just did not have a safe place to be able to place people. The decision was made to repeal the law that said that sheriffs could place people with mental health issues in the jail. So therefore, it was important that we provided support to the sheriffs. We provided them a safe alternative. It took us a couple of years to be able to bring this bill forward, but it's moving through the process. It's in House appropriations right now. So what it would do is that private businesses could apply for a license from local government, their local county commissioners, to be able to provide safe transport. So, so all that is wonderful. Here's the problem: is that the bill costs $84,000 in general fund, and it would bring in about $114,000 in federal fund. In the normal land, that would probably be manageable. But when we go back, we are looking at a budget that is probably anywhere between $2 and $3 billion with a B dollars in deficit. Bills that have any fiscal notes will not be able to make it through. There just is not the money in the state budget to be able to do that. So this bill is in jeopardy. There's about $450 million that is coming from the feds to help with mental health that I'm hoping and I'm trying to work on getting this bill covered by that. So good news, bad news. If we need to, we'll pull the bill and bring it back again next year. But I won't be there next year. But hopefully we can succeed in bringing it through.
It speaks to, this is, there's always those priorities in government. And I was going to ask a little later, but in case we don't have time, as a legislator, you're given, is it 5 pieces of legislation that you can put forward? So
right.
You're selective when you decide what is important and where do you want to go with. So, when any legislator, I don't care about party because this is about people. This isn't about party. Those are important pieces, and it's unfortunate to see that if it succumbs to a fiscal imperative. So, well, how about we end on a good note, though?
Okay.
Because I have high hopes for this, but I again, it's the reality of government and bureaucracy. So let's go with our last one. This is a good one. All right, 6 of 6. In 1894, Colorado elected the nation's first female state lawmakers. They were all Republicans. That doesn't matter, though. Can you name them?
Go for it, Dave. Take it home.
Take it home.
I have no idea.
I just think this is great because I'm always inspired by women in our state that have led the charge. So here we go. Here's a little bit of history for everybody watching. 32 years old. This is 1894. So Dave, you could at least enlighten us. When did women get the right to vote? 1920.
Are you having as much fun with this as I am, Dave?
This happened last week too.
But this is great. Come on, Colorado history. This is 3 women who won in 1894 the right to represent people in their districts. So to take over Indian and Veteran Affairs Committee, and believe me, this all has a point. Being involved in the suffrage movement, and then being the youngest to hold that elected office. So I think that's amazing. I'm going to go ahead and give this winning one to Tracy, though, because she did. You know what? I take it back. I think it's a tie because Dave did know that event that did happen on those steps back in 2006.
Yeah.
So it's possible there's a Carrabba's and limoncello dinner in all of our futures.
Yeah,
So.
Parker, I don't know if you saw, Parker said he does have that. So
Yes, he does. And actually, I think that Parker would probably let us all have a Carrabba dinner and a limoncello anytime we want to. All we have to do is call and order it. And he does bring it curbside because I do my chicken marsala there. They have amazing chicken marsala.
Oh, the chicken Brian. That's my favorite. That's a good one. We've got our favorites. Well, you both are great sports. The reason that I brought up with a couple of those is because, especially with your bill specifically, you had mentioned at the beginning, are you in a disco right now? That was awesome.
I started flashing.
Oh, you know what? It's the TV. I have the TV on.
Is when as you get into legislator, you mentioned you're able to go until the session goes until the end of May. What are you doing with, I guess, with those times and committees and such? And that's how those bills kind of go through, and explain just kind of that process behind that bill.
So in the normal world, we would end on May 6th, 120 days. But we will not be ending on May 6th. We got an interpretation from the Supreme Court that in an emergency where the Constitution defines 120 calendar days, that's not necessarily consecutive days. So as I mentioned earlier, right now we are looking at coming back May 18th or possibly the 19th. We don't know how long that will be for right now, and we don't know if we will end at the end of that period or if we will come back later on this summer or this fall. A lot of that, there's a lot of factors involved in that. Public health is the primary one, is that will we still be under this emergency? I don't know how the committees will play into that, Vanessa. As a committee chair, we've been asked to look at all the bills that are scheduled in our committee. look at, is there a fiscal note? Is it something that pertains to our current economic recovery and public health issues? And so we will look at what the priorities are when we go back.
I guess that's all we can ask. And it sounds like you, as you said, nobody is just sitting back. I know from Dave's experience that this is constant. Every day there's new information. So we all look forward, I think, to getting back to that, but know that everybody's got their own decisions to make from here. So thanks for entertaining my trivia game.
Yeah, so we're about at the hour, and so we usually go about an hour. So thank you very much for joining us, and I appreciate you giving us the time and your service. So with that, I hope everybody stays safe, and hopefully we all get to leave our houses sooner than later.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate you inviting me on. I think it's important that we show that, we work in partnership. It's not about party, that we can find common ground. Dave and I had talked about coming in and talking about little known facts in the legislature. I just want to say before we end, one little known fact is we may be of different parties, but and have different philosophies and have different beliefs, but for the most part, we all get along and are connected. And I think that's we demonstrate that here in Westminster too, that we have different philosophies and we have different policies, but you and Vanessa and Dave, we have always gotten along, and we can have conversations, we can have disagreements, but it's about how can we make Westminster and Arvada one of the best places to be able to live in. So that's what I wanted to say. I have always appreciated you all, even though, and we'll continue to work on some of these beliefs. Okay.
But and likewise, don't worry. Like I'm not above trying to convince
I mean,
you.
if you need a tattoo, we know a guy.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Tattoo artists, they can't work.
Not right now. Yeah.
My tattoo guy is in Florida now, and he's selling paintings, so that's how he's getting by. So
good. Glad he's going to be okay. Yeah.
I'm hoping. I need him. He has unfinished work on me. So if he's watching, I'm keeping you. Keep yourself safe. So, all right. Thank you, Tracy. Have a good night.
Thank you all very much.
Good night,
Bye.
everyone.